Hey, what's that? This is the Roland AE-20. What's that one? Oh, this is the Roland Aerophone Pro. Cool. What's the difference? You know, I don't really know. Maybe we should ask that iSax guy. Good idea. Hi. The Aerophone Pro has been around now for, 18 months, 2 years, and it's very quickly established itself as one of the best wind synthesizers on the market. The AE-20 is just reaching the shops around now, and it takes a lot of the features of the Aerophone Pro and puts it into a slightly smaller, more affordable package. So let's look first at what's the same with these two. To begin with then, both instruments have the same 22-key saxophone fingering layout. Now that's brilliant if you're a saxophone player, but don't forget, in the menu system on both of these instruments, you can set it to be more like a clarinet fingering or a flute fingering, or even a brass fingering if you'd like. Both instruments have exactly the same breath and bite sensor. The mouthpiece is identical on both. Now, turning over to the rear, again, similarities. Both instruments have 2 octave up and 2 octave down keys. Both instruments have these keys called S1 and S2. They are useful for turning things on and off, like effects or drones and things. Both instruments also have the thumb lever for controlling the pitch. That can also be changed to control other things. And both have the same OLED display where you can make your settings, change your sounds, set up whatever you'd like to in the menu. Moving down here, both have the 2 dials here for selecting sounds. The lowest dial here on both of them are set to be something slightly different, but you can actually replicate the same process, the same function on both instruments in the menu key. So that's not really a difference. By the way, both have exactly the same internal effects. So you've got reverb, delay, chorus, and there's a whole load of multi-effects as well. Both instruments can run off 6 AA rechargeable batteries, or you can plug in an AC power adapter. And the power consumption, the runtime on batteries is exactly the same. Okay, now let's look at some inputs and outputs again, which are the same. On this side here, the on-off switch, the headphones input, the Bluetooth capability, again, identical on both instruments, the same. On the right-hand side of the instrument, both have the USB-C connection. That's going to be good for doing updates to the instrument or connecting by USB-C to either a computer or something like an iPad. And then finally, both instruments have these very useful built-in speakers up here on the shoulders. As I've said before, they are really useful because if you just want to quickly set up and play and try something out, that's great. I don't think that's the way that you should sort of audition these instruments because they are both equipped with a 1/4-inch stereo output, and of course that will go to something like an amplifier, and that's the way you'll get the very best sound. As I've already mentioned, both have Bluetooth capability. Now, some people are getting a little bit confused about the Bluetooth system on these instruments. The Bluetooth is very good for either connecting to the apps that you can get with these instruments. Both instruments you can use an editor app and a lesson app as well. So you can connect wirelessly to those applications using the Bluetooth. You can also connect wirelessly to use the Bluetooth for what we call MIDI. MIDI isn't the sound of an instrument, it's really the instructions to an external synthesizer or computer application to make the sounds within that instrument work. What you can't do on these instruments is connect them directly to a Bluetooth speaker. The reason for that is that if you did connect it to a Bluetooth speaker, you would have a very slight delay in the transition of the sound between the instrument and the Bluetooth speaker. That would get really tricky to play in time with anything, because every time you blow a note, there'd be a very slight delay before you hear the sound. Where you can use Bluetooth for sound is that if you'd like to pair your phone with the Aerophone, you can send wirelessly something like a backing track to the Aerophone. That way you could plug in headphones and hear the sound of the internal Aerophone sounds along with that backing track that's streaming from your phone. So it's a really nice little self-contained built-in studio, if you like. You just need your phone, your Aerophone, a pair of headphones. You can practice silently any time of day or night. Now let's look at where the differences are. The most obvious one is, of course, that the Aerophone Pro is a little longer than the AE-20. It's about 5 centimeters longer, and it's about 30 grams heavier, so really nothing to choose from there. Now, I said that we would just quickly address this issue with the key sound. You know, it's never really bothered me that much, the key noise, but I know a lot of people are asking questions about this. And let's just do a very quick comparison here. That's the Aerophone Pro and on the AE-20. Now, on the connection side, there is one additional feature that the Aerophone Pro has, and that is that it has what we call MIDI in and out. The AE-20 does not have that capability. Why would you use that? Well, some people might be interested in connecting to maybe a synthesizer, and having that MIDI capability can be very useful for people that maybe don't want to go via a computer. Of course, we can connect both of these by Bluetooth and USB-C to a computer or an iPad. But this MIDI connections down here allows us to connect to directly to a synthesizer. Now, be mindful, if you're going to do that, you will have to know how to program that synthesizer to respond well to something like the Aerophone. If you plug it straight into a synthesizer, yes, you'll get some sound, but you won't necessarily get great control out of it straight away. So you'll need some knowledge about programming synthesizers to get the full benefit from that MIDI capability. The other two main changes in terms of the control of the instruments, again, are on the rear here. The first one you can see on the AE-30, there is this thumb pad. Now that's a pressure sensitive pad. It doesn't exist on the AE-20. So this gives us an extra performance possibility. You can program that thumb pad to do maybe something like a growl, or it could add a glissando to the sound. You can make it control the drone effects on the AE-30. So it can be quite useful. Again, I've been a little bit 50-50 about that control. I find that sometimes it's easy to trigger it accidentally, but nevertheless, once you get it set right, it can be a very useful feature. And then the other thing that, of course, you can't see, but you will notice when you play, is that the AE-30 has what we call a motion controller. So that means, just like you have maybe on your phone, as you move the instrument either up and down or side to side, that can also trigger changes to the sounds, and the AE-20 does not have that capability. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, we should talk about the sounds on these two instruments. There are, again, a lot of similarities, but there are some important differences as well. Okay, so let's try and sort out what's happening with these sounds. The basic building blocks of sounds on the aerophones are called tones. There are two types of tones actually. There's the Zen core tones. They're those cool synthesizer sounds that we get. And then there are the supernatural sounds. Well, they're things where you want to imitate an instrument, so they sound like a violin or a flute or a trumpet or any instrument you can imagine. Roland take those tones and turn them into what they call scenes, and that's what you select on either aerophone. You select your scene, and that's your basic sound. Now, both aerophones have the memory space to store 600 user scenes, and both instruments have 12 favourite scenes as well. They even have the same number of tones at 342. The difference starts to happen when we look at how many scenes there are. Preset scenes, the Aerophone 30 has 331 and the AE-20 has slightly less at 265. Now, when we look a little bit deeper into this, those tones we were just talking about actually have a smaller building block that make up those tones. They're called partials or waves. Now this is where we actually get into the detail of just where the differences are. You see, the AE-30 and the AE-20, when they're shipped, they actually have exactly the same number of waves, 1,980 different waves. But the AE-30 has some extra flash memory space. That means that you can add some more waves, the basic ingredients to the sounds. Now they might come from the Roland Cloud, or there's a potential in the future for us to possibly be able to add our own user waves. Now, that's speculation on my part, but I think that could happen in the future. Now, the AE-20 doesn't have that extra flash memory, so you can't add those extra expansion waves to the AE-20, and therefore, overall, the AE-30 has just got that advantage for the professional player. It's a more open-ended system where you'll be able to add really an infinite amount of sounds to upgrade the sounds within the instrument. To round up then, which one should you buy? Well, of course, as we've discussed, there's a lot of similarities. There's a few differences. If you are a saxophone, clarinet, flute player, maybe you haven't played a wind synthesizer yet, the AE-20 is a really fantastic option for you. You're going to get the Zencore sounds, you're going to get those supernatural sounds, you've got the apps, the editor app, the lesson app, Bluetooth, USB-C capability, great breath and bite control, some of the best sounds that are available on the market today. It's really a great little package at a really affordable price. If you're the sort of person that's maybe done some digging into synthesizer programming already, maybe you've already had a wind synthesizer, you're looking to move up to something better. You know, you're the sort of person maybe that likes the open-ended expandability of the Aerophone Pro, then of course the Pro is going to be the one for you. In performance, you know, using that motion sensor and using the thumb pad, there are going to be those advantages as well. And if you want to connect to a synthesizer directly over MIDI, then really it's going to be the Pro for you. I hope that's really helped you think about which one you might choose. I'd like to ask you please to subscribe to the channel and give me a thumbs up. Whichever one of these you buy, you're going to need some support. There's my iSax Facebook group. There's also, of course, this YouTube channel. But if you subscribe to my mailing list, there's some interesting projects that are on the horizon, which I think you're going to be really interested in. Thanks again for taking the time to stay with me for this video. I look forward to seeing you very soon in the next one. Take care. Bye.